Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about how to keep green veggies fresh in the fridge. If you're like me, you're kind of tired of wasting your money buying fresh vegetables to keep healthy, and then they sit in the fridge. You might not get to it for a week, and when you open up the bag, you find out they're soggy, they're starting to get moldy, and it's really irritating, right? So I did some research and I found this trick to keep vegetables fresh. It's not well known, right? I've seen a lot of videos out there proposing different methods, but I think this one actually is the most effective. I've tested it out myself over the last few weeks, and it really does work. So how much does it extend the life of the vegetables? Typically about double, maybe more depending on your fridge and the type of vegetables that you use. But I definitely think it's worth your while, and it's a very easy trick to do, right? So first, let's talk really quickly about the nature of the problem. The issue is that your fridge is basically a big box that it pulls moisture out of the air, right? That's good for most things, but for vegetables, it's not a good idea. In fact, they go bad faster. It's kind of like when you leave flowers outside of a vase with water, right? They lose their moisture, they get dry, and they go bad fast. So this is a method to counter that from happening, and it will typically keep your vegetables fresh for maybe 2 to 3 times, extra. And I think it's a really cool trick. So let me get into the demo. So we're gonna test out green onions because I think that's something that everybody uses. And for this demo, I like Mexican grilling onions. I think that's what they're called because they're kind of like half and half. You get green onions on one side, right around here, and it's just like you get an onion as an extra, 2 for 1. So I really like using these for cooking. So first, let me cut up the vegetables, typically the way I do it, and then I'll show you the trick, okay? So like I said, it's pretty simple. And you know what? I'm testing out a new video rig, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I'm kind of like figuring out the angles and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, like most people, I will cut off the top ends, which, they've gone a little bit bad, and I'm not gonna use them. For these type of onions, I'm gonna actually cut them in half because for a lot of recipes, you use the green part and you use the white part for different purposes, for garnish, or because you need them for the recipe. So I'll go ahead and cut up the onions really roughly. You can cut them to the size that are useful to you. It really doesn't matter for this method, or at least for the first method that I'm going to show you. So let's go ahead and cut up the onions. And for this, you don't need the root, So I'm going to cut those off and place them over here, cut them off, and pretty much do the same. I'll cut them in smaller pieces. Let me put that away. That's a little bit slimy, I don't like that. So I'll cut them in little pieces. Like I said, well, I should demonstrate a good technique. So make the claw and put your knuckles against the knife to make sure that you don't cut yourself. And so there you have it. So let me cut away some of the last pieces here. Okay, so let's say you want to, this is a good portion, and you want to store this away. And so the two things that you're going to need is a Ziploc bag and some paper towels. I don't have paper towels right now, so I'm going to go ahead and use napkins. They're fine. So go ahead. And by the way, I wanted to mention I did clean these onions thoroughly, and they're fine. But when you take them back out, I'm sure you'll want to clean them again, right? So I'm going to put these away into the Ziploc bag. It's a little bit bigger than I need, right? But this is for demo purposes. If I were doing it for real, I'd probably cut up this onion as well and put those in here. But the simplicity of this trick is the fact that, like I said, the fridge is, pulling moisture out of the air, right? And so what you want to do is control the environment around the vegetables to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, in a typical fridge, you will have little drawers with handles or switches that control the humidity, and they're trying to address the problem that we just discussed. But sometimes that's not enough. You need a more direct control of the moisture. So I think at this point, I think you can kind of guess. I'm not gonna. Basically, I'm keeping moisture inside this bag, and I'm gonna do it not by putting. I'm not going to pour water into the bag because that's kind of silly, but because it's not going to be evenly distributed. So what you do is, I hope you can see this. Yeah, okay. You wet a paper towel, or in this case, some napkins, and you simply place it inside the bag, right? And when you close it, you have created a enclosed environment where the moisture is going to stay inside. So I'm going to go ahead and chop up the rest of the onions, and then I'm going to show you a second method that I use to keep veggies, especially spring onions, longer in the fridge. Okay, so the second method that I use to keep green onions fresh and other veggies too is that I simply cut them up, put them into a small bag, and I put them in the freezer. If you do that, they do stay fresh for up to easily about 3 months. Now, I do have to say that there are some caveats, right? The fact that you're freezing them does keep them fresh for a longer time, but when you take them out, I mean, they're going to be crisp because they're frozen, but once they thaw, they are going to be kind of soggy. So typically, I reserve onions that are in the freezer for uses like soups or other recipes where, the bite of the recipe doesn't really depend on, that the veggies are crunchy. So what you'll notice in this shop is that I've chopped them into finer bits. I hope you can see that. Let me see if I can get that in focus. Right, I think that's in focus. Anyway, so because once I put them in the freezer, it's unlikely that I'm gonna want to chop them up again. So once again, I will put these in the Ziploc bag, and I do like to keep my whites and greens separate, so I'd put the green slices into one bag and the whites into a separate. When I did the demo, I just put these together, just to show you how it's done. But typically, I would separate those out too. And so, in this case, obviously, you don't need to put a wet paper towel. It's going to keep by itself. But like I said, be aware that once you take these green onions out, you have to use them immediately. And so I will actually put them into my recipes like soups or whatever, when they're actually frozen. So because it really doesn't matter. So those are the two ways that I kind of balance out my uses for different vegetables. And you can also do the same thing with other green vegetables like this. Carrots, you don't have to do as much because they're much harder. But yeah, basically that's it. So try the Ziploc bag with a wet paper towel. I think you'll find that it works really well. Like I said, I tested it out, and they've typically lasted about 2 or 3 times than they would if I'd let them in the fridge without trying that method. So give it a try, and I think you'll like it.